Hello, my name is Dale Frederick Dahlke. You already know that, but what do you know about me when I was younger? What do you know about my parents or my grandparents? Most of you probably don't like history. I never did either. But as I got older, I thought maybe some real actual history of me and my family might be interesting to you. I was going to try to write a book, but I'm not a good writer, so I decided to try to do a video on my phone with pictures from the past. So I'll start with my parents, Arthur and Emma Dahlke, and have a picture of them when they were first married. Then I will show you my dad's Dahlke side. There's a picture of my grandma and grandpa with the 7 kids. My dad is here on the left. And there's a picture from a little bit older when my dad and her sisters. My dad was from a family of 7. His parents were Fred and Ida Dahlke. That's who they are. This up here on top was my grandpa Fred when he was younger. My grandpa Fred was born December 19th, 1871. My grandma Ida was born April 9th, 1873 to Mr. and Mrs. Richard Scharf. Her mother's maiden name was Wilhelm Engel, who was born in Germany, 1842. The Scharfs and Engels are buried in a cemetery up by New Prague called Frieden's Cemetery, which I recently had a chance to go and visit, and actually found out that my grandpa and grandpa Scharf and my grandpa and great-grandpa and grandma Dahlke were also buried there. So now I'll move over to, well, there's some other pictures here if you want to catch them. My dad when he was younger, and this one is a family get-together of my whole relation from when I was younger. My mother's name was Emma Bertha Carrico before she married my dad. She was born September 2nd, 1908, in St. Lawrence Township, to Herman and Frederica Buss Carrico. My mom had 5 brothers and sisters. And here's a family picture when they were younger. My grandma and grandpa Carrico. And this is the same picture of the family, but when they were a little bit older. My grandpa Herman Carrico was of German descent, but was born in Latvia and moved to the U.S. in St. Lawrence Township when he was 8 years old. Grandpa Carrico lived with me and my parents the last 10 years of his life, but died when I was 9 years old. So this is one reason for me doing this now, so you'll know me when I was younger. I was with my grandpa Carrico every day, but unfortunately never asked him about his past. I never knew my grandma Carrico, but her obituary said she was one of the fine and estimable women of St. Lawrence Township. She was of German extraction, was born in Latvia, and immigrated to the U.S. when she was 21. Some of the other pictures here, this is my uncles and aunts when they got a little older. This is the house that my mother grew up in. And some of these other pictures are pictures of my mother. So anyway, that's the history of my family. Now I'm going to go to my younger years from the time I was born. Now show more pictures from the past, comment on them, and then go into my life from when I was a young boy to now. I've got posted here some pictures from when I was little with my brother Stan and David. So we'll show the pictures, but I'll talk about the events as I go. Back on May 13th, 1944, in Shakopee Hospital, Art and Emma Dahlke became the proud parents of Dale Frederick Dahlke. I was baptized on June 7th, 1944. First thing I remember about my life was getting sick when I was 4 years old. On July 20th, 1948, I was taken to the hospital at the University of Minnesota because my Uncle Doc worked there. He told me I'd be okay, but they had to put me to sleep. I remember crying and fighting as the nurses put this black mask thing over my face. When I woke up, I was in bed. My mom was by my side, and David was looking at me from the end of the bed. But the only other thing I remember being 4 years old was that my Grandpa Carrico started to teach me how to play cards. Grandpa Carrico lived with us and was my best friend growing up. When I was 5 years old, I remember things started to change on the farm. I don't remember exact dates, but I remember Dad had a good year on the farm and bought his first tractor, Alice Chalmers AC 45. We had that thing many years, and I got to use it as I grew up. Not that I wanted to. So anyway, the rest of I've got different dates and times, and I'll just read some of them off. 1949, I learned a lot of new card games. My dad bought his second tractor, the Alice Chalmers WD. They also sold the last horse that on the farm, and I was sad because the horse had to leave. 1950, I started school. Got some pictures on the board here from first grade. Just some things I remembered as I grew up. 1950, my parents remodeled the kitchen, and we actually got a real bathroom put in with a toilet, sink, and bathtub. No more freezing in the outhouse. And I got rid of the pea pot and the metal tub that we bathed in the kitchen. 1951, we got our first TV. I was Dad's remote. I laid on the floor and he laid on the couch, and he told me what channel to go to. 1952 was a huge snowstorm because I remember big piles that David and I dug into and was able to stand up inside of the snow piles. 1953, I started school at Trinity Lutheran in Belle Plaine. I had to walk a mile every day because I had to go further to get to that bus to get to Belle Plaine. The walk was uphill both ways to catch the bus south of the farm. 1954, we got a new machine shed, which is still there today. When you see the picture of the farm, you'll know what that is. Also back then, I broke my leg playing in a hayloft with David and his friends. I had a cast from the tip of my toe to the top of my leg. 1958, finished 8th grade and was confirmed at Trinity in Belle Plaine. Fall of 1958, I started my freshman year of high school at Jordan High School. 1960, I went from Jordan. I started school at the University of Minnesota School of Waseca. Don't remember why I did that, but I did. 1961, my parents finally got a new oil furnace. We always heated with wood before that. And also in 1961, my dad sold all the cows. 1962, graduated from high school. I was also an honor student, which not sure how I'd pull that off, but anyway. 1962, I started college at the University of Minnesota. Spring of 1963, I quit the University of Minnesota because I did not agree with some of the teachings. Fall of 63 to the spring of 65, I went to Dunwoody, took up civil engineering and surveying, graduated in May of 1965. In between there, in September of 1964, I got engaged to Janice H. Personius. Then comes 1965. Had the worst day of my life and the best day of my life. March 4th, 1965 was the worst day of my life. Went to see my brother Stanley after school to ask him if he wanted to be in our wedding. He said, of course. He had an implement business in Belle Plaine. I left there to go home to the farm. I was only home 5 minutes when the call came that he was killed. I didn't believe it because I had just talked to him 20 minutes before that. Then somebody pulled up in the driveway, came to tell us in person. Also in 1965, June 1st, I started working at Hennepin County Engineering Department after I graduated from Dunwoody. Then on June 12, 1965, was the best day of my life. Married Janice and we moved into our first apartment in Jordan. It's right across the street from Sunder's store, which had groceries and clothing. Also with one block was my favorite ice cream parlor, the Gold Spot Dairy. The Carnage Meat Market was only a half a block away. And Jan could walk to work at the bank, which is only a block and a half from our apartment. It's two hardware stores within 2 blocks, and best of all, there was 4 bars within 2 blocks. No need to drive. Fall of 1965, we moved into an apartment in Richfield. 1966, we bought our first house in Eden Prairie. Moved in October 66. Becky was born on January 2nd, 1967. I was only able to be here with her for 1 month. I left for the basic training in the Army. The second worst time of my life. 1969, I surveyed and split the lot we had and built our first new house. 1970, Jeff was born and lived in our new house. Just made it to the hospital at the last minute. The nurses delivered him 2 minutes after we got there. No doctor. I met him walking out of the hospital as he was coming in. I told him that he was late. 1972, got out of the Army, received an honorable discharge as a staff sergeant. This made me eligible for all the veterans discounts at Lowe's, which is really great. 1973-74, built our third home in Inglehaven, south of Shakopee. 74, I quit working at Hennepin County and started working at Carver County. 1975, June 27, Tammy was born. She loved the beach at Inglehaven as well as Becky and Jeff did too. 1978, built my 4th house on Pierce Street in Shakopee. On July 26, 1979, Tim was born. He grew up on Pierce Street. In 1984, I quit working at Carver County and got my real estate license. Also in 1984, my dad sold everything on the farm at an auction. I sold the farm for them April 26, 1985. Also in 1985, I started my development business with Stan Brinkhouse. We were called B&D Development. 1986, I developed Howard's Addition, moved and built our 5th house on Limestone Drive. My children all know most things that happen after this. I will highlight just a few. 1995, moved into our 6th house on Barrington in Beckridge Park, which I developed. 1996 to 98, I developed Pinewood Estates, which we moved back and I live at now. Other developments I did, the Ridges, homes and golf course south of Jordan. I think one of my nicer developments. 2001 and 2006, I developed Valley Creek Crossing in Shakopee. 2006, I retired from the development business with the partners I had. 2007, I started Scenic Bay Resort up in Isle. Some good things and bad things happened in Isle. 2020, I got out of everything while I could still move. The end.